Good morning and welcome to our October 20th Reflection on Sunday. As we move into this conversation today, we are going to look at what we talked about on the 18th in our YouTube worship service and have this conversation over what love is. I hope that you had the opportunity to look at our October 18th Bible worship service on YouTube. We used imagery again from The Princess Bride. We looked at Wesley and Buttercup, and we talked about the actions of love and how an act of love makes love more visible, more tangible for other individuals. So today, as we look at what love is and we look at the actions of love, I want us to really break down the reality of an active love. Sometimes we say words as teenagers. We want to say the words "I love you," and we want to hear them back. Words can have power, and actions have power too. Actions are the reality of what words are saying. So today, as we look at 1 Corinthians 13, starting at verse 4, love is patient. Love is kind. Love does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always trusts, and always hopes, and always perseveres. Love never fails. Verse 8, part A. Let's look at that. And I want us to separate for a moment what we see as love at times. We talk about love and we put a identity to love, and sometimes that love is immediately identified as eros. So today, as we go through the concept of talking about what love is, I want to teach you the Greek words again. I know over our history together here at North Coast United Methodist Church that we've gone through the Greek words of love and what they mean. But today, I really want to lay them out. I want to lay out the difference, because when I say I love my wife, and when I say I love a Big Mac, I love a nice hot cup of coffee. Mm, I'm not saying the same things. Just use three different words to describe love. And I want us to break through those words because sometimes we get so affixed on one definition of what love is that it becomes skewed. And the concept of love becomes skewed. When we look at the many different names, and in the past, I've only really talked about three. I'm looking here at Wikipedia right now, and I'm seeing one, two, three, four, five, six, seven different Greek words that connect to love. So today, I want to talk about all seven words as we talk about what an active love means. And we can separate the eros from it all and look at what it truly means to find love, to find a place of unity, and to be collective without the skewed image of Eros getting in the way, but knowing that there are truly ways that we can love others as long as we know what we're saying. As we know the difference between I love my wife, I love my kids, I love a Big Mac, and I love a nice hot cup of coffee. So let's talk about that. Let's go through this and let's talk about one that may be the hardest to really attain an emotional connection to, because it's hard to understand within our humanly nature. That we live in a reality of a call and response. When I say I love you, I desire to hear the words I love you too. And there's a call and response that exists within I love you. But when we look at the first definition, the first Greek word that defines love, it's agape. Agape. And agape is love without expectations. Now, we live, as I just said, we live within an emotional desire of a call and response. When I say I love you, I desire to hear back, I love you too. But agape is much different than that. If we look at the concept of love without expectations, it's the reality that I say I love you, and we just go on about the day. There's not a desire for a response. It's the idea of loving something without expectations, and that love being not necessarily being loved back. Let's look at the concept of God and tie this into the reality that we exist with as we deal with the concept of free will. I feel the greatest blessing and the greatest curse that we exist with as creations of God is free will. And within free will, we have the ability to choose to love God. We're not machines, we're not puppets, we're not toys that were created that express back to us the love and emotions that we desire from them. We don't serve a God that made us loyalists, that created us in such a way that we love the Creator. We don't all love the Creator. And we see that very much so as we talk about love and actions. We see that through actions that aren't so loving. But we see the free will of making decisions that are hurtful and painful to other people. And the whole concept of agape is being, this overall being that loves, that shouts to the universe, I love you, and understands and has created life in such a way that it understands it may not hear back, I love you too. That's a hard reality. That's a hard reality. I've been in pastoral counseling sessions with families and members of the family shouting that they don't love the other person, but there's still being this desire and connection from the person that they love that person even though they don't love them back, and there is a connection and a desire to keep loving them and to keep supporting them even though they hear the words I don't love you. That's God. That's God. We see so many times through actions of war, through uh, isms, racism, sexism, gender inequality, sexual inequality, that we see the actions of I don't love you back. But we serve a God that continues to have an avenue open towards justifying grace and leaves that avenue open that makes it possible for even the ones who act in such a way that they display, I don't love you back, to find love. Yeah, agape is amazing. And it's something that I have a hard time attaining, understanding. I'm blessed that we have a God that loves us no matter what. But I tell you, when I get hurt, I have to deal with it. And there's some times that I love people, but I don't like them. And that is something that I deal with as being a human being. And within being a human being is the reality that, not everybody's going to like me. And I'm not always going to like everybody else. But there's always this avenue that's open that can create an opportunity of love that will hopefully one day create a place of unity, that hopefully one day will create a place of peace. So, agape is a willingness to love, even if we're not loved back. Let's keep going, and I'll skip over Eros. We all understand Eros. We all were like Charlie Brown at some point. We had the little redhead girl that we wanted to to notice this. So we all had the individual in our life that we wanted to eros us back. We wanted to have an emotional connection with another person. We also that this imagery has been skewed over time. We understand the actions of eros, and well, we've seen that corrupted in so many different ways, and there is a beautiful desire that exists in eros of having a pure, deeper connection with another individual. And unfortunately, we have seen that corrupted too through free will. And I many prayers for the ways that's been corrupted and many ways that we have dishonored that. I mean, I think about the ways that we exclude people from our sanctuaries because of who they eros. And it's funny. It actually it hurts me to think that the greatest divider in many of the conversations that I've had over the last 6 years over church conflict has been not about what God says is right or wrong as much as it's been people not understanding another person's eros. And I don't think we need to. I don't think we need to understand another person's eros. We just need to understand the potential of the individual of being loved by God. So eros, and eros is beautiful until the ways that we corrupt it because we don't understand it. Now here's philia, and philia is very important. I always explain this as brotherly love. It's the love of a sibling, and that's not completely true, but I still enjoy that imagery because here's the thing. It goes back to the idea that I tried to present with talking about agape. You know, we have siblings that we don't always like, but there is a place of love that still exists in those things. We don't always like our siblings, but we love them. Now, the definition that I'm looking at here, as I have Wikipedia open on my computer, it actually describes it as an acknowledgement of equality. It's the understanding that it's a love between equals. It's a statement of equality. And that is something that I've seen us fighting as United Methodists for so many times. You know, we may proclaim our love for others, but we don't always philia other people. Within our love, there we see sometimes us needing to be the parent directing the way, which puts a balance structure in it. I mean, even agape, if you look at it through the purest sense, if we look at it as God loving us even when we don't love God back, we put an order structure in that. God is the top of the order structure, and God loves God's creation even if God doesn't love it back. There's an order structure and agape. I hope, especially as I've gone through many different levels of marriage counseling, there really should not be an order structure in eros. There should be an equality, a common ground, a common understanding, a true give and take within eros relationships, and philia just lays it out there. I like this a lot better than the sibling relationship that I've shared in different times. I like this phrase. It's an acknowledgement of equality. When I say that you and I are standing on the same level, that you and I are standing on the same plane, I like that because sometimes when we put the order structure in, we immediately start to exclude people, and this philia is a fight against exclusion. It's the acknowledgement of common ground. It's an acknowledgement that we all stand on the same on the same feet. We're all together in this, I like that idea. The acknowledgement that we are all standing on common ground. Let's let's move on, because here comes the three. Well, the big three is agape, eros, and storge, and philia. Those are the ones that we know. We hear that in conversations. But here's the three that aren't always common, but they're important too. We need to look at storge. Storge is a family love. You got to look at what the word is, like stork, storge, stork. The stork brings the baby, as we told so many people. The stork drops the baby in the cabbage patch, and there they are, storge. But it's the image of a parent towards a child. Now, let's go back, because when we look at philia and we talk about what it means to have love of equality, there's a balance order that exists in Storge. If we talk about the love a parent has for a child, there is a mentoring that exists. There's the Yoda to the Luke in this. There is the master to the servant in this. The idea of one person who's willing to teach, raise, train, take care of another until that they find their place in the greater structure. When we look at Storge, we look at the reality of there being a caregiver, there being a person that takes care of the other. So Storge puts out an order, and sometimes we got to have that order. We have to understand that we are the children. We have to understand that sometimes we need to close our mouths and open our ears so that we can hear the teacher train. The Storge is very, very important for that. Let's move on, because the others are have some meaning too. Now, I'm gonna butcher this word, because not only am I dyslexic, but I also kind of sort of know English. So as I try to read to you the Greek word philiatua, philiatua, it is an idea of self-love. Now, again, as we look at this, and we go back all the way to the book of Matthew. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength, and love your neighbor. And sometimes that's all we remember. And love your neighbor. But there is more to that statement. It's love your neighbor as you love yourself. And this philiatula is self-love. It's the acknowledgement that exists when we say we are God's creation. We are created by a loving, beautiful God. And because that we are created by a loving, beautiful God, there are admirable qualities that exist within us. As we go through Galatians chapter 5, as we will next week in our sermon, we know that love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, patience, and self control are all beautiful images that exist within us through the fruits of the Spirit. And we are not just worthy of God's love, we're worthy of love. And it's okay to proclaim that we are worthy of love. And we look at this concept of philitua and look at this concept of meaning self-love. It's I I don't cut the rope on my end to respond to God. We look at the concept of justifying grace, and it's God constantly reaching out to us. It's God constantly reaching out to us no matter what. And because that God is constantly reaching out to us, we're worthy to reach back. It's a good thing. We are worthy to reach back. So philia tua is the acknowledgement that we can be loved and we are worthy to reach back. Let's look at the next one, and it's Xenia. It's the guest friendship, and this is it's being neighborly. I that's something that I love, being neighborly. Hospitality. It's the love of hospitality. It's the love of reaching out to another person and taking care of them and showing them that they are welcome. Hospitality. I'll share with you, as a pastor of North Coast United Methodist Church in Oceanside, California, when we had in sanctuary, in person worship, one of the things that I bragged, and I still do, I brag to my fellow pastors about. That coffee's not so hot anymore. What I brag to my fellow pastors about is, our church, you don't have to tell them to go over and say hi. We're full of welcoming Christians who show hospitality, and they go over, they say hi, and they check in on people. The power of hospitality is what has carried our church through this pandemic, through our phone call committee. We have some very beautiful friends who have been willing to make phone calls and to reach out and say, "Hey, how you doing?" And it's been a great blessing to watch all that happen. So as we look at these 6 words of love, all of them have actions tied to them. They're active qualities. It's the fight of equality. It's the fight to teach and the train and the love. It's the fight to show hospitality. But as we look at the multiple ways of saying, "I love you," and the multiple definitions of love, they're all actions tied to them that help other people find their place in the kingdom. So let's just hold on to those things. Thank you for going through that. And I may have butchered a couple of these Greek words, but my southern tongue and my dyslexia fighting against each other, there's a true intent of at least trying to teach you what they mean. And email me at ncumcinfo@gmail.com and teach me how to say the words right. It'll be good to have those conversations. Thank you for joining us with this reflection today. My name is the Reverend Michael Drew Davis. May the peace of the Lord Jesus Christ be with you. God is love. Amen.
We'd like to have the opportunity to get to know you. Please email us at ncumcinfo@gmail.com. And if you've been enjoying our services online, please email us. Please say hello. Again, that's ncumcinfo@gmail.com. And also, if you'd like to give to our church, please go to northcoastumc.org and click on the Give button. Again, that's northcoastumc.org and click on the Give button. Thank you for joining us.